Welcome. It's been a while, but then again, there haven't been any major updates to Pathfinder Exile 2 for a few months now. But I have condensed the patch notes to what's relevant for poison builds in general and Pathfinder specifically. And overall, it's looking great. Pretty major buffs to a build that was already one of the stronger. And I will most likely play it again, unless they surprise release the Druid or so, which I really want to try. But even if I don't play it, I'm going to stay to my commitment and update this very fun build. So let's get into it. First, some generic things. There will be no repeat acts, just 1, 2, 3, then the new act 4, and then 3 shorter temporary story acts. There will be no weapon swap delay, and this is something, many things almost seem like everything I have wished for gets implemented exactly like I have said, so there will be no weapon swap delay. This just made it feel clunky, like you could invest in weapon swap speed, but no one is ever gonna do it. This just means that 99% of the player base played with gimpy, clunky delays in weapon swap. So, great change. There's a new sprint. You get fast travel movement by holding down the dodge roll key after you dodge roll. This lasts forever and is a substantial boost to speed, but you get stunned if attacked, so you have to be a bit careful when you run around. Here's another big buff to this kind of builds that uses many skills. All support gems have unlimited uses, and previously, if you wanted to have toxic growth, maybe you also wanted the concoction and the poison burst and everything. It was simply gimpy to have to pick and choose gems for each skills, and you often found yourself having to throw in some elemental gem on toxic growths, and yeah, it wasn't great. But that will be another big buff. They have added trade exactly the way I always thought it should be. You can travel to a player's hideout and instantly purchase what you want. If you have old premium tabs, you can convert them to merchant tabs somehow. And seems fair overall. Exactly like it should be. Then we're getting into the poison skills. Toxic growth. Pustules now deal 46 to 100% attack damage at gem level 5 to 20. Previously 42% at all gem levels. So this is nearly 150% more damage. This was already a strong skill. The main thing was it was clunky and locked you in animation. And the only question mark is it's now a rain skill. So maybe that does not allow it to be spammed, but if it does, and if it's buffed as heavily as listed, then this could be incredibly strong. Possibly one of the strongest skills in the game. Now has barrageable tag. That could also be a big buff if barrage only lowers the damage of the direct hits and then creates normal pustules. Then it will also be a big buff to use barrage with it. It didn't work at all previously. We have changes to blink, and this one will be interesting to see. It no longer counts as dodge rolling, and my suspicion is this is purely negative, that you will not get any buffs and you can't use it to get the previously mentioned sprint. But it might allow you to blink and dodge roll, although I don't think that's the case. And you can no longer use blink in one slot, you have to use it in both. So it is a nerf, and on the other hand, we come right up to shield charge. This has been slowed down, possibly more than the mentioned 25%, because it also has a longer attack time. This could be baked in and it's simply 25% including the attack time, but there's a fair chance it's more than 25% nerfed. But on the other hand, it has no cooldown, so you can use it at will all the time, so dropping blink might not feel so bad when you have endless shield charge. Despair. Curse now inflicts minus 41 to 49% chaos resistance, and this is a big buff. It was previously 20 to 24, so another big one. There's also a new gem, which looks like another massive buff. Toxic Domain, create an area of toxic bloom on the ground. While in the bloom, you have increased skill cost, regenerate life, and your projectile attacks attach a toxic pustule, which can be poisoned. And if this works exactly like the previously mentioned toxic growth pustules, then this will be very good single target damage for bosses. While you might not spend the time to cast it while clearing, it will be really good for harder stuff. Poison Burst Arrow, quite a big buff. 20% more magnitude of poison instead of increased. You often hit a few 100%, so going from, let's say, theoretically 200 to 220 is like a 10% buff. Maybe I'm miscalculating, but something like that. And it would now be 20% more. So fairly decent buff there on Poison Burst Arrow. They also added Poison Stack Socketable, I think, that I never tried late in the league. So that should also have been a nice buff. You can socket on the bow. Even more viable since they are slightly nerfing the physical rune down to 18%. We have the Rhoa Mount, which now grants increased movement speed. However, less movement speed penalty reduction while using skills. And they say this is approximately cancelling out the bonus while using a skill. So this is still a buff in neutral non-combat movement. And this is a very viable skill. It previously disabled Plague Nova, but even so, it is a viable choice. I played it quite a bit when not using Running Assault. After I swapped, however, I never looked back. Now to the Pathfinder specifics. Sustainable practices is something I did not spec. It granted a percentage of evasion rating as elemental damage reduction, because Energy Shield was simply so far superior that I didn't have that much evasion rating and did not want to spend Ascendancy points on it. So it's buffed from 30% of evasion rating to 50%. However, evasion rating has now gained an effect called deflection, where you can get up to, I think, 100% chance to reduce any hits and ailments caused by those hits by 40%. So full evasion build might be viable. We shall see. I'm going to try it when I play, since it's new, and if it doesn't pan out, I'll simply swap to Energy Shield. Poisonous Concoction has been changed. It's now called Acidic Concoction. It consumes charges from the flask still, but now it's nothing you will want to spam, so that won't be such a big issue. And it will deal physical damage based on the remaining maximum poison damage on the target. It cannot poison, so it will be a way to consume all the poisons in order to do 150% of the expected remaining damage. So I interpret it as 50% more than just letting the poison ticks. And in addition, you can of course apply new poisons. So if you spam the poisons, use the concoction like a finisher, spam new, it can be worth way more than 50% more damage. But then again, it costs ascendancy point, and if it still requires unarmed weapon swap, I don't think it will be worth it. But it's a very interesting skill, and it could be a lot of spammable damage on bosses, since you can reset your poison stacks and go again. Now, there are some nerfs, and the most notable is Eternal Youth or energy shield builds. In my previous builds, I simply had Eternal Youth, which makes the flasks give energy shield instead of life. Spect energy shield, and that simply gave me several times more life as energy shield than you would ever have in a pure evasion build, while still keeping decent evasion and using the flask as usual. But with this nerfed, you might have to invest a bit more in energy shield recharge or leech. I'm not even sure if it's possible to get good leech anywhere nearby on the tree. So this might be a pretty big nerf to ES builds. So I will try the new evasion and deflection, and I still have a hunch that energy shield will be stronger in endgame with really good gear, unless some of those changed many nodes stuff are ES nerfs as well. There was also no mention of Withering Touch, which was nerfed so heavily last league that it was practically unusable. Even if you put it on your main skill using 2 Ming's Heart, it just didn't proc any mentionable amount. Then we have some skills that could be good. So I mention them because they are very interesting for poison builds. Snipe, and for Snipe as well as Gas Arrow Explosion, you need Plaguefinger that allows elemental damage to poison. So if you have those, you can have really big AoEs that apply poison. And Snipe had this quirk that I kind of wanted to throw it in, but one of its big effects was a guaranteed crit. And now it doesn't. Instead, it does much more damage. So when you are a crit build, a lot of Snipe's stat budget, so to speak, was wasted in the guaranteed crit, and now it simply does way more damage. So this is actually a big buff to Snipe for crit builds, although it would ruin some of the old ways to use Snipe. So it's worth keeping in mind because it looks really strong. And it also got a bigger radius, so it's a big buff to the area. And yeah, it's definitely worth trying with Plaguefinger, and now with the explosion on Gas Arrow. Another honorable mention is Temporal Chains. It now has a minimum level of 7, so it's easier to use, and massively buffed to 46 to 59%. Previously 24 to 28, so roughly doubled in effectiveness, if there is any way to hit another curse. So with that said, there are no planners available to me yet. As soon as I have some, I'll try to put a full build video out when I have decided how I will go. So see you then.